I was having dinner with someone who has like a really big podcast, and I don't need to say her name, but like, hundreds of thousands of downloads, everything. And they are in these circles, like whatever, like the big podcast circles. And I said, do you guys ever talk to really smart, you guys on here have had really like big names, powerful, intellectuals and stuff. Like how often does K through 12 education really come up? Like it's almost never. I don't think Joe Rogan, biggest podcast in the world, has ever had a teacher on, like has ever really discussed the education system. Like I understand and I appreciate like the props. I really do. I'm not just saying that. Like it's I agree with you. But it's interesting how little people seem to care about the school. Like I think people get into it for politics, critical race theory or no, but like, I haven't heard Steven Pinker talk about it. Like I would like to. Like what is he's super genius. What do we do about the education system? It's a little frustrating how much people say like, oh, teaching what you do is really important. But the reason that I downplay it is now that I'm in this like kind of social media podcast world to some degree, like it feels very much just like, oh, you just do what you do isn't like real intellectual, or what you do isn't really important. It's actually very interesting how little, Sam Harris has ever talked about education or something like that.
I think I have a theory about that though, because my theory about why that is because, well, two things. One is, Steven Pinker teaches at university level. That's kind of all he knows, right? So that's one. And then the other one is honestly, a lot of the big podcast people, they're not really sending their kids to public schools. Okay. They're probably sending their kids to private schools like yours, where this isn't that much of an issue. Yeah. And it's clearly big enough for the middle class. For the average American, they care so much about what's happening in K to 12, right? That's the reason why Chris Rufo has blown up to be the person, the activist, journalist that he is right now. It's because he's made this a bread and butter issue. And so there's a bit of a gap between the elite intellectual and what he or she cares about and the average person. So I think the average person actually is really motivated by this. But the problem is your big podcaster that has like Joe Rogan's not sending his kid to public school. So he doesn't really care or no.
No, my friend actually taught his daughter. It wasn't in public school. Yeah. So middle America does it, but like, even if you take like the intellectual podcast space, like they don't discuss it much, but then you go to like whatever, like Logan Paul doesn't talk about it. So it's almost like nowhere in like a mainstream, like this, whatever these channels are, this podcasting, social media world seems to be discussing it. And the ones that are in talking about education are the ones who are very politically woke, like the ones that I talk about and talk to and stuff like that. There's very few. Like I fell into this because I think that I'm tapping into what you're saying. Like people in middle, most people that follow me are just like moms from whatever, like Illinois or something like that. And they're like, thank you. But like, I think that there's just not a lot of it. And I don't know. but it's going back to what you said. Yeah. About the trust. For sure. I think that you're giving kids an easy out. And I've had several friends who, my students know they can't pull it with me. But I have a lot of friends who's, if they fail a kid, the kid will just play a race card. Like they'll just say, you failed because of this. And like, they have to have their ducks in line. So when you call that, you go in front of the administration and you have to show, here's what an A paper looks like. Here's what a B paper looks like. You have to like have it all lined up. Happened to a good friend of mine just recently. So you're giving kids a lot of power. When I was in high school, if I could have played that card, oh my gosh, why would I not? High school kids, I love teenagers, man. They're the best because they're so just like looking for the holes in the system.
Well,
like the velociraptors on the fence in Jurassic Park.
As we know from your 23andMe, you definitely can't play that card.
No.
You couldn't have. Yeah, they'll be like German and English. No.
Oh my gosh. I'm just such an oppressor.
You failed me because I don't get poison ivy.
I'm colorblind. No one gives a crap about that though.
But it seems like the problem is that the biggest podcasters either don't have children or they send their children to private school. So I don't know how many. I don't know how many. I don't know if Logan Paul has kids, right? But it's those influencers don't have kids, probably.
Yeah, they said something like that. Like, why would I care if I don't have kids? That's what he said to me. Those guys, like, I was like,
which is crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you care about society? Like,
yeah, that's crazy.
Ignorance is like these people running around with terrible ideas and who are super uneducated is bad.
Yeah.
Having literacy rates where they are is just terrible for everyone. Like, what do you mean?
Yep.
Like, why are you thinking so selfishly?